The Joe Milton trade, the story that took forever to come and now just won't go away. Various reports over the weekend on the Joe Milton trade. Reminder, the Patriots shipped Joe Milton and a 7th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys for a quote-unquote 5th-round pick, which is really a sandwich pick after the 5th round. They gave away Joe Milton, the guy who cost you the number 1 pick in the draft by beating the Bills in the season finale, his one start as a rookie, a former 6th-round pick. And we need to get to the bottom of this, Nick, Fitzy, Stevens, Andy Hart, here on WEEI Afternoons, because the more we talk about this, the less I like this whole damn situation and everybody involved. So, for example, Karen Garigian, Mass Live this weekend, writes, based on intel gathered from sources during the week, Milton fancied himself a starter.
Okay.
Wait, is that a bad thing? Shouldn't
I was
we
gonna
all
say,
do that?
Aren't you like Andy? Shouldn't you believe like that you can be the best at whatever it is that you choose to do, like to do, or actually are good at doing?
I always thought, I'm sorry, I've always heard this. I know it's biblical, but it's also become football that iron sharpens iron. Like, that's all I ever hear. Iron sharpens iron. You want to have the best players, competition, rising tides, I believe, Fitzy, lift all boats. All of these cliches we've heard. Okay. So Joe Milton fancied himself a starter. I didn't even like that language, to be honest, because it felt like it took a shot at Joe Milton. The audacity. He thought he could be a starter in the NFL. Okay, so that happens, and it happened late last week. The Patriots are at Gillette Stadium today. As Mike Vrabel told you at the owners' meetings, voluntarily. He voluntarily wrote them a letter to tell them about the voluntary offseason program that they were hopefully going to voluntarily show up for. They're there. Drake Maye's there. Other guys are there. Mike Vrabel wanted Joe Milton out of the building, basically. Mike Reese, the timing, according to a source familiar with the team's thinking, wasn't a coincidence. Monday marks the start of the team's voluntary program, and Vrabel views that as a meaningful checkpoint in the process of establishing team culture and the dynamic that ideally unfolds within each position group. Okay, so this really bothers me. It is now seen as a bad thing to be competitive in Foxborough. It is seen as a bad thing to believe you're not just a backup. They apparently are working now with a class system. There's a class of starters, and then there's a class of backups who should just be happy to be backups and nothing else, should not desire to ascend to a greater role. That is the message that has been sent by this Joe Milton trade and these subsequent reports, and that left me, Fitzy, with the question, who does this reflect poorly upon? Is it Joe Milton for, God forbid, fancying himself a starter, as Karen Garigian wrote it? Is it Drake Maye, who Ben Volen reported, well, his parents were a little pissed off that they even drafted Joe Milton. They didn't think that was fair to their little baby, the number 4th-round pick, and I called him a baby for a reason there. And the last person I'll throw out there, so does it reflect poorly on Milton, Maye, or Mike Vrabel? Is he afraid to have competition on his roster? Is he afraid to have Drake Maye pushed by Joe Milton? Because I thought he came from a world where Bill Belichick told every Patriot team for 20-plus years that every year, every coach and player has to reestablish himself. Even Tom Brady had to show up in April sometimes. Not later in his career, but earlier in his career, he showed up in April to reestablish himself as the starter. Now they trade away backups who want to be starters in New England. Fitzy, explain it to me.
I'm actually going to go with the person that I should be maddest at, or who we should blame the most. I'm gonna go with Joe Milton, because I believe
he's gone. Easy.
Yep.
Pick on him. Bully
easy
him.
Target. Yep. Can't say anything. Yep. Classic. Typical classic.
Typical
system.
Patriot fan. You people love them till they leave, then you rip them.
Foxborough fanboy.
Getting laughs outside from that.
Here's why. Here's why I'm disappointed in Joe Milton, because you had a great spot. You were behind Drake Maye. You got Mike Vrabel as your head coach. You already seemed to do well last year in the medical waste fire that was the 1 year of Gerard Mayo's head coaching in Foxborough. Now,
another guy who's no longer here.
Exactly.
For what it's worth.
Now you got Josh McDaniels coming in, Mike Vrabel coming in. You got a little thing going on with Drake Maye. Little friendly competitions, never hurt anybody. I'm starting to get the feel that he mouthed off a little too much, and that he was starting to get a little big for his QB britches, and that he may have I hate this expression, but for lack of better, he may have groused his way out of town. I'm not going to say shot his way out of town, but he may have basically worked his way out of town to a point where I'm not as much concerned about Drake Maye saying, "Oh, I don't want to have someone nipping at my heels. I need to be comfortable and secure in my role as quarterback of the New England Patriots." So much as Mike Vrabel probably just thought, "Look, I've worked with Dobbs. He's a professional backup. We'll keep the kid upright. We'll do the best we can. I need less headaches out here." So good luck in Dallas, and now you're Brian Schottenheimer's problem, not mine.
If Bill Belichick had believed that, you wouldn't have had Tom Brady. Damon Heward would have been the backup quarterback permanently for the New England Patriots. When Drew Bledsoe went down, Damon Heward would have come in.
But was Brady vocal?
Great minds think alike. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Our lines are open.
When he arrived, he told Robert Kraft he was the best decision you ever made with this organization.
That's urban myth.
So you don't think he was vocal? So Brady stayed and catapulted your franchise to title after title after title because he was a great competitor and believed in himself and wasn't comfortable being buried on the depth chart. Joe Milton does it, and you ship him out of town before his second NFL season. Interesting. So what am I to think here? Maybe the incumbent quarterback is soft, or maybe the new coach is soft. Because I'm not putting this on Joe Milton. I'm not putting it on Joe Milton for wanting to play because first of all, I don't know when he would have had the opportunity to, did you say grouse? Grouse a little too loud? I don't even know what grouse means, but he didn't have time to grouse because they weren't
grouse is complaining.
The facility. Who
knows where he was grousing? Could have been a miserable group chat.
Okay. So Drake Maye was offended and had to tattle to Vrabel. He'd be mean to me in the group chat. You got to trade him. I don't like this. I don't like anything about this. I don't like the return that they got on the trade.
The return was trash. And Maye is your boy. You've been talking about how he's the one who's going to solve our economic crisis, the tariffs, the Patriots, everything.
Now I'm finding out he's soft as puppy poo. That's all I can read from this trade, is that he is somehow soft as puppy poo, and I don't like it because it's not really hard for me to think Vrabel is soft as puppy poo.
I don't think Mike Vrabel Mike Vrabel is something that served at TCBY. So I want, just the same way that you've said to me so many times before, I want you, first time we sit down with Draco, with D10 or Drakeo or D-Rizzle or whatever they call Drake Maye, I want you to say to him, when we sit in the studios at Gillette Stadium, so what exactly? A great game yesterday. Big dub. Congratulations on the offseason.
More importantly,
By the way, what's this whole, first soften him up, butter him up real good, praise him right up the wazoo, and then I want you to ask him, so what's up with, why Joe Milton have to get traded, huh?
It'll be a little bit easier because he probably will be on the phone.
Yeah, and I think at that point the answer will have come. He's going to be asked that question, right? Don't you think he's going to be asked? At some point, did you ask for Joe Milton to be traded? Were you?
And then you'll hear Stacey James. Last question.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're going through a tunnel. You broke up. I'm sorry the audio went out. I'm sorry.
No more questions, everybody. No more questions.
No, I don't know how you can read this in it. Can anybody give me a way that this is a positive for the Patriots? Is there a positive?
That I can't because aside from the backflips, I know, insert drop of Ted Johnson going, laser cannon arm and backflips, deep throws and backflips. Forget about the camp antics and the fan service Joe Milton provided. I just don't see how unless they really believed he was not ready to handle potentially having to play against top-tier talent should Drake Maye get injured this year. And maybe Mike Vrabel talked to him for 10 minutes and was like, oh, man, this kid is super talented. He's oversized Michael Bishop, but I can't do much more with him. I just don't see how somebody with his physical gifts, his toolbox was not an asset that you would want to hold on to and develop. Why'd you have to just, here, get out of here. You want to go play? Go. Beat it, pesky neighborhood kid, and shut the screen door on your way out. I didn't like that. And I too, I think the ROI stinks.
Dan Ball's going to spin it positive. What do you got? Positive for the Patriots, Dan Ball.
I'll try to shoehorn something. If the reason this move was made in the first place was to appease Drake Maye, who was looking over his shoulder after the performance from Milton, both in the preseason and in the final week of the season.
Then we're porked.
If it's true, and if the tweet from, I think it was Mike Reese or somebody tweeted, it clears the runway for Drake Maye.
I hate that expression so much. I hate that expression so much. I never want to hear it again. I never, ever want to hear clears the run. What the hell was on the runway for Drake Maye, Andy?
Big old Joe Milton.
Apparently, yeah. Apparently, it was Bazooka Joe. That was in the way. But if it's true, and the last time that you ever have to hear it, Fitzy, is in this case, and it's true, then we should get a much better Drake Maye in year 2, even better than he was going to be if you had competition on the roster. That's what.
Yeah, but aren't you going to find out he's like that character trait? Isn't it going to rear its ugly head later and you're going to regret it? Like, I don't love this idea of the most important person in the building, the quarterback. Modern football says that's true. He is the most important person in the building. You know how I know that? Because they pay those guys like $500 million and they pay coaches like $10 million. So they know he's the most important person. He can't handle competition?
Apparently not.
He can't handle Joe Milton being around? And I have never once seen anything to indicate to me that Joe Milton has a problem. Have you? I know you haven't. You haven't. You don't have any. Fitzy, have you? Down at Gillette.
I have not seen or heard a single thing about Joe Milton that would have ever led me to believe that he was going to be a problem for the quarterback room, the team, or most importantly, Drake's development, because everyone's so smitten with him, Andy.
And smitten, terrible word, and we'll get into that later. I've never used that word, and I don't think I ever will. In
Grouse,
terms of a
smitten. Boy, you've got a very selective dictionary today.
So, on a team in the Patriots that last year we saw lots of guys do and say things we didn't like, right? Polk, Booty, Baker, Tavai. I don't know. There's probably more if I thought about it longer. Joe Milton was not on that list. Never once did I not like what Joe Milton did, said. His backflips, okay, you don't have to like them, Ted, but they were fun and they were in training camp and they got big cheers from the small crowds.
Well, it's because it wasn't a factor. It was Brissett at the beginning of the season, then it was Maye. Joe Milton's...
Wait, go back for a second?
Which part?
Brissett
at the beginning of the season.
Is that a factor here, too? Do they have no faith in Dobbs to be the veteran quarterback? They've had faith that Jacoby Brissett could handle two rookies, to be the in-between guy between Maye when he ascends to starter. He'll handle it perfectly because
a more assertive veteran QB presence is what you're saying. Maybe Dobbs too passive?
I'll add Dobbs to the list. People they don't have faith in. They don't have faith in Maye. They don't have faith in Vrabel. They don't have faith in Dobbs. They don't have faith. There is a problem in faith here. There's no faith in Foxborough. That's the problem. No, I am legitimately, like, you're laughing at me like you think I'm doing a bit here. This is not a bit.
No, it's just started to get a little. It just started to get a little gospel-y. There's no faith in Foxborough. Now, if you look up to the heavens,
and the Lord cometh, and his name is Maye.
Yeah, I mean, you can't stand still. The gesticulations and everything. Like, my God,
I know it's biblical, but it's also become football cool. It's a problem. It's a problem if you don't have faith in your coach, you don't have faith in your quarterback. Those are problems, and they don't have faith in somebody. And I don't even know who they is, because they is one of them. Mike Vrabel, does he know he couldn't be a good enough coach with a young backup quarterback pursuing his young starting quarterback? Did he pull the trigger on this? It looks like a Mike Vrabel trade. It looks like Milton was probably a Mayo guy, and Vrabel's like, yeah, we don't need that. But that, again, somebody brought it up last week, and injuries were a major factor, but also one of the talking points in Washington with RG3 was how soft he was. He couldn't be coached hard. You couldn't criticize him in front of the other team. Maybe he was threatened by Kirk Cousins. Whatever. Like, this is going down that the high pick is too soft, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all, and I think that's something we're going to have to monitor moving forward because this makes no sense. This sends a message. I'd be offended if I was a backup on this team. If they don't trade me, that means they think I'm just a backup who has no desire to be anything more than a backup. Because the one guy that wanted to be a starter and they found out he wanted to be a starter, they shipped to a different team.
They perceive you won't fight for a job, is how they look at you.
So if they're comfortable with you being a backup, it means they think you have no competitive nature. You are soft. You have no dog in you. I do not like the message this sends to anybody. This was a terrible trade in return, terrible trade in theory, philosophy, the whole damn thing. This is one of the worst trades we've ever seen, and this is a city that gave Babe Ruth up.
Holy mackerel. Take a breath for a second.
Try it.
I think we actually have some Bedard audio on this very topic that would be relevant while you, at Fenway, do your Foxborough filibuster. Stanley, take it away.
I don't think Vrabel set out to do this, but he kind of embarrassed Elliott Wolf a little bit by doing this. I mean, you know, like you said, if Elliott Wolf was still in charge, let's say if Gerard Mayo was still here and Elliott Wolf was still, you know, in personnel power, there's no way they make this deal. No, they were going to follow the Packers' plan, just keep drafting quarterbacks, and you know, Maye works out great. You know, if they could trade, you know, Milton, you know, all the better. So to me, absolutely, this is just more evidence that Mike Vrabel is in charge and he's doing everything.
So he says he embarrassed Elliott Wolf with this trade?
Yes.
Isn't Elliott Wolf already emasculated enough, though?
I would feel fine if I'm Elliott Wolf. I drafted a would-be starter who threatens your boy, your smitten boy, so much, though, that we got to deal him. I drafted a starter in the 6th round. I would be taking a victory lap that you made me unload a would-be starter who you are not comfortable coaching. Vrabes. If I'm Elliott Wolf, I'm walking around Scott Pioli style with my chest held high around Foxborough these days.